In the bright city of Athens, more than 2,000 years ago, a boy named Socrates was born. Athens was full of life. Traders sold olives and pottery in the busy marketplace. Children ran and shouted as they played games on the stone floors. Artists carved marble statues that seemed to breathe with beauty. In all this noise and action, Socrates stood apart. He did not chase after his friends. Instead, he watched them closely. He saw how they moved, how they spoke, and how they felt. Even at a young age, he was fascinated by people's actions and their reasons for doing things. Socrates came from a humble family. His father, Socrates, was a stonemason. Every day, Socrates worked with his hands, shaping rough rock into strong building blocks and graceful sculptures. Socrates often sat beside him, holding small tools or brushing away dust. He marveled at how a simple piece of stone could become something magnificent with patient hammering and careful planning. From his father, Socrates learned the value of hard work. He saw that good results came only after many patient efforts. He also learned the importance of precision, because a single wrong strike could ruin the entire block of marble. His mother, Fenarete, was a midwife. She helped women bring new life into the world. Socrates admired her gentle touch and quiet confidence. He watched as she soothed mothers' fears with kind words and steady hands. He saw how joy and relief filled the room when a baby's first cry echoed in the air. From his mother, Socrates gained a deep respect for the miracle of birth. He saw that life itself began with questions. Questions about health, about comfort, about hope. He learned that kindness and understanding could bring new beginnings, just as careful questions could bring new ideas to life. As Socrates grew older, his curiosity expanded beyond his parents' workshops. He began to walk through the busy agora, the central marketplace, talking to everyone he met. He approached merchants who sold fish and grain and asked, "Why do you choose this price for your goods?" He spoke to soldiers in bronze armor and asked, "What makes a person truly brave?" He knelt beside bakers and asked, "How do you know when bread is perfectly baked?" Even the beggars, wrapped in tattered cloaks, paused to answer his gentle questions. Each conversation opened a new door in his mind. He discovered that people often held their beliefs without thinking deeply about them. His questions made them pause and reflect on ideas they had never examined before. One hot afternoon, Socrates sat in the shade of a tall olive tree. He closed his eyes and remembered his father's steady hammer and his mother's soft voice of comfort. He realized that shaping ideas was like shaping stone or helping a mother with a newborn. Both required patience, care, and the right touch. Just as his father coaxed form from rock and his mother guided new life into the world, Socrates wanted to guide people toward deeper understanding. He wanted to help them bring forth the ideas hidden inside their own minds. Slowly, Socrates came to a simple belief. Every person carried wisdom within, even if they did not know it yet. With gentle questions, he could help them find that wisdom, just as his mother helped women find the strength to give birth. He understood that his life's work would be to ask questions, to listen carefully, and to encourage truth through thoughtful dialogue. This realization filled him with a quiet excitement. He knew that his curiosity would lead him on a journey unlike any other, a journey of the mind, guided by simple, powerful questions. In those early years, Socrates did not yet know how far his questions would carry him. He did not know that his name would echo through history, or that his method of asking questions would become a foundation of learning for centuries to come. But he held fast to his wonder. He continued to observe, to ask, and to learn. In the bright streets of Athens, The boy who watched quietly under the olive trees was already beginning to shape a new way of thinking, one question at a time. In the busy streets of Athens, Socrates did not teach by giving lectures or long speeches. Instead, he asked questions. He believed that asking simple questions could help people think more clearly. He would approach anyone, a poet in the marketplace, a politician speaking in the assembly, or a potter shaping clay, and say, "Tell me, what is justice, or what makes something good?" When Socrates spoke with the poet often had no clear answer. He could recite beautiful verses about love and courage, but he could not explain what those words truly meant. Socrates would listen carefully, then ask a gentle follow-up question. "Why do you write about courage?" he would say. The poet would pause, frown, and try to explain, but soon he would admit that he did not really know. Socrates smiled and thanked him for trying. In that moment, the poet saw how much he had assumed and how little he had examined his own ideas. Next, Socrates would find a politician making a speech about the laws of Athens. The politician spoke with confidence, saying, "Our laws are just and true." Socrates would step forward and ask, "What makes these laws just?" The politician, taken by surprise, might say, "Because they were chosen by our city fathers." Socrates would gently press further, "But why did they choose them? What makes one law better than another?" The politician would become uncomfortable. He would shift his cloak, look at the ground, and struggle for words. In that silence, he realized that he had never truly thought about the reasons behind his own beliefs. Then Socrates would visit a potter in a shaded workshop. The potter shaped clay into perfect jars and amphoras. He knew all the steps to make a strong vessel, but when Socrates asked, "How do you know your work is good?" the potter scratched his head. "I have practiced many years," he said. Socrates nodded, then asked, "Does practice alone teach you what makes something beautiful?" The potter hesitated, aware that he had never asked himself that question. In that moment, he saw that skill in one area did not mean complete understanding of beauty or value. Through these meetings, Socrates developed a clear method. First, he asked a simple, direct question about a big idea: justice, courage, beauty. Next, he listened closely to the answer. Then he asked another question to explore the meaning and logic behind the answer. He repeated this process until the person realized gaps or contradictions in their own thinking. Socrates never gave the answers himself. He believed that true understanding came from discovering the truth on one's own. This way of teaching became known as the Socratic method. It felt like planting seeds in a field. Each question was a seed that grew into new ideas. Some people felt uneasy when their beliefs were questioned. They liked to think they were wise, and Socrates' questions made them feel unsure. Yet many others found the method exciting. They saw how it made their mind active and free. Young students soon gathered around Socrates, eager to learn by asking and answering questions. They watched him talk with merchants and soldiers, with artists and teachers. They learned to speak clearly, to think carefully, and to admit when they did not know something. Socrates always praised honesty. He said that admitting ignorance was the first step to real wisdom. One evening, as the sun set over the marble temples, Socrates sat with his students by a shallow fountain. They spoke about virtue and truth. A student asked, "Master, why do you push us to question everything?" Socrates replied, "Because without questions we live in shadows. Questions bring light. They help us see ourselves and the world more clearly." The students nodded, feeling a new sense of purpose. In simple conversations and gentle challenges, Socrates showed that learning was not about memorizing facts, but about thinking deeply. His method spread through Athens and beyond. Teachers in distant lands adopted his style, using questions to guide learning. Lawyers learned to examine every claim by asking careful questions. Even today, educators in many fields still use the Socratic method to help students explore ideas for themselves. Through emotional encounters, be it the poet's hesitation, the politician's discomfort, or the potter's surprise, Socrates made people aware of the strength and limits of their own minds. He taught that wisdom was not a treasure to be owned, but a path to be walked, one question at a time. In that gentle, patient way, he changed the way people learned and understood the world. Socrates lived by asking questions, and this habit led him into danger. Some people in Athens thought his questions were harmful. They said he was confusing young minds and disrespecting the city's gods. Because of these accusations, he was taken to trial before a jury of 500 citizens. The charges against him were serious. They claimed he corrupted the youth and did not believe in the gods of Athens. Many of the jurors admired him at first, but the growing fear of his ideas turned opinion against him. At his trial, Socrates did not beg for mercy. He spoke clearly and calmly. He explained that his work was not meant to harm anyone. He said he asked questions to help people think more deeply and live better lives. He told the jury that if they punished him for asking questions, they would harm themselves more than him. This was because they would lose the chance to learn and grow. Socrates even suggested an unusual reward instead of punishment. He said that, for his service to the city, he should receive free meals for life, just as Olympic champions did. This surprised the jury and the crowd. They saw it as a sign of arrogance. In their anger, they voted him guilty and set his penalty, death by drinking a cup of hemlock poison. While waiting for his sentence to be carried out, Socrates sat in a small, quiet prison cell. His friends and followers came to see him. They were sad and afraid. They begged him to escape. They had a plan to bribe the guards and help him flee to another city. Socrates listened to their plan, but he refused. He said that he must obey the laws of Athens, even if the laws were flawed. He believed that breaking the law, even to save his life, would betray his own principles. Socrates taught that a person must stand by what is right, no matter the cost. In the days before his death, Socrates continued to teach. He talked about the soul and its immortality. He said that death might be a blessing, a release of the soul from the body. He tried to comfort his friends by telling them not to fear what comes after life. He asked them to remain brave and to keep asking questions. He reminded them that a life without examination was not worth living. On the day of his execution, Socrates walked calmly to the place where he would drink the poison. The hemlock caused a numbness that started in his legs and slowly moved upward. As he lay down on a soft bed in the prison, he spoke his final words. He asked a friend to remember to pay a small debt to the god of healing, Asclepius. This request was a simple act of integrity, showing that even in his last moments, Socrates cared about his responsibilities and the truth he lived by. Then his breathing slowed and finally stopped. Socrates had died with courage and calm. After his death, many of his followers felt grief and loss, yet they also felt inspired. They knew that his ideas must live on. Two of his students, Plato and Xenophon, began to write down everything they remembered. Plato recorded their conversations as dialogues that showed Socrates asking questions and guiding people to think for themselves. Xenophon wrote about Socrates' life and character. Thanks to these writings, the world would never forget him. One of the greatest gifts Socrates left behind was the method of questioning that now bears his name, the Socratic method. This method asks simple, clear questions to help people examine their beliefs. Teachers around the world still use it today. In schools and universities, instructors ask students to explain their ideas, to define their terms, and to explore the reasons behind their answers. This practice helps learners think more deeply and clearly. In law schools, professors use the Socratic method to train future lawyers to argue with careful logic. They ask each student a question and then follow up with more questions, revealing strengths and weaknesses in arguments. This approach builds strong thinking skills and the ability to see both sides of an issue. Socrates' legacy also shaped democratic ideas. He taught that all citizens should question authority and examine the laws under which they live. This spirit of inquiry became central to the idea of free societies, where people can debate openly and hold their leaders accountable. It inspired later thinkers during the Renaissance and the Enlightenment to demand freedom of speech and human rights. Today, Socrates' influence is felt in many ways. People in classrooms, courtrooms, and public debates use his method of questioning. His life story reminds us that standing by our principles may be difficult, but it is essential for integrity and progress. His calm refusal to betray his beliefs, even in the face of death, teaches us to be brave and honest. Most of all, Socrates showed that the search for truth is a journey without end. By asking questions and listening carefully, we continue his work. In this way, the spirit of Socrates lives on in every thoughtful question we ask and every honest answer we seek. After many years of asking questions, teaching in the marketplace, and facing trial and death with calm courage, the story of Socrates comes to an end. From his quiet childhood under olive trees to his final moments drinking hemlock, Socrates lived by a single purpose: to seek truth and to help others discover it for themselves. He learned from his father the value of careful work, and from his mother the power of gentle guidance. He walked through Athens, asking simple questions that led people to see their own assumptions and to think more deeply. Even when his method angered the powerful, he refused to stop. He stood by his principles and accepted the consequences of his actions. His trial reminded us that speaking truth can be risky. His calm acceptance of death showed his unwavering commitment to justice and integrity. The deep lesson from Socrates' life is that true wisdom begins with recognizing what we do not know. When we admit our ignorance, we open our minds to new ideas and to real learning. In our daily lives, we can follow Socrates' example by asking questions instead of making assumptions. When we face a problem, we can pause and ask, what facts do I really know? What am I missing? When we talk with others, we can listen carefully and ask for their reasons, rather than arguing from our own fixed ideas. By doing this, we become better thinkers, better learners, and better friends. We build respect and understanding instead of conflict. Thank you for listening to this story in full. Your dedication to improving your English listening and understanding is truly inspiring. To celebrate your progress, how about a quick little question, yes? Which of these statements best matches Socrates' belief? A. Wisdom comes from having all the answers. B. Wisdom comes from knowing how much you do not know. Please write A or B in the comments below. We look forward to reading your answers. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our channel. Your support gives us the motivation to create more high-quality English learning content for you. We also welcome any donations to help cover our costs as we work for free to bring you these lessons. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps us continue this mission. Thank you for your kindness and for learning with us.